All right. So, what is your name and where were you born?
Jenna Amore, and I was born in Toms River, New Jersey.
Okay. So, what was your profession at the time of 9/11, and what is your profession now?
So at the time of 9/11, I was actually a freshman in college at Monmouth University. It was actually my first week of classes. And my profession now is I'm a research analyst with Odds On Compliance. We work in the sports betting and gaming industry.
Oh, interesting. So, during like the days leading up to 9/11 and the day of 9/11, how was the environment? Was it usual? Was it normal? How did you feel?
The days of, or the days before, I should say, seemed fine. What's interesting is that, so it was a Tuesday, and I had just moved into the dorms the week before. So 9/11 was actually my first Tuesday having classes. So the days before, for me, were really, hectic, trying to get used to college life, trying to get my dorm set up. Professor Ziobro actually was my roommate. We lived in Beechwood, and it was really, trying to get ourselves acquainted to what it meant to be living away for the first time. So, if there was anything in the political climate that would have, send up a red flag, I was certainly too preoccupied to notice it. The day of, so it was my first Tuesday of classes, and I had art history. And it was the first time I had the art history class at all. So it was, I believe, an 8:30 class. And at the time we used the underpass, So I walked across the underpass there on was it Cedar, get to the building, and the door is closed, and there's a sign on the door saying class is canceled due to the World Trade Center. And I had absolutely no idea what that meant or what the teacher was talking about by having written that note. So just turned around and went back to the dorm. And when I got into the dorm, my suite mates had the TV on, and obviously that was what was on the news, and I was shocked.
Can you describe what you saw and the images you saw?
I don't remember. I'm kind of old, so it's going back a long time. I have to assume it was probably, you know, images of the towers themselves, probably the, frenzy going on in and around the city.
Yeah.
Um, Also at that time, it was not common for everyone to have a cell phone. I didn't have one then. Most people I knew didn't have one, certainly not students. So I did know a couple of people that I went to high school with who had gone to colleges in New York. And there was no easy way to get in touch with them to see if they were okay, at that time. It was landlines, like all of the dorms had a regular phone. And one of the big ways that people kept in touch at that time was, an online instant messenger called AIM. And, there was no way to get through to anybody on that day, through any of those methods of communication. So there was really no way to know if anybody you knew who was in or around the city was safe. Were they okay? Were they affected in any way? I think it was a couple of days before I got in touch with any of them.
You said it took you a couple of days. Can you elaborate on that? What was the problem? Just like no phones, no IM?
Yeah, like internet was down. And plus, I'm sure that, they were probably, because they were in the thick of it, they were probably dealing with people that they knew who were impacted. But yeah, there was just no immediate way to touch base with anyone you knew to see, where are you? How are you?
How did that make you feel? It was like nervous? Was that maybe adding to your fears?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. At the time, these were, pretty good friends of mine, that I had just recently graduated high school with. And, up until then, people that I would talk to on a pretty regular basis. So definitely super scared for them. One went to FIT, which is right in Manhattan, and one went to Manhattan College, which is a little bit north of New York City proper, but still certainly, right in the vicinity.
Yeah. You said you saw it with your suite mates on the TV. Can you explain what kind of environment the room was? Was it panic? Was it fear? Was it sadness?
I think we were just all shocked. Some of the girls that were in my suite were actually from North Jersey originally, like areas like Hoboken, Secaucus. So, to them, New York City's, right there. So I'm sure that they also knew people who lived or worked in the city as well, or certainly close to it. But I just remember like we just kind of all like we didn't really know each other very well. So we were just kind of sitting in the common area, just kind of like surprised and quiet.
This was early on in the semester, correct?
Is the very, very beginning. So I think classes had started maybe like the Wednesday before, because
Wow.
I know it was the first Tuesday that I had class.
Do you think that might have affected your relationship with your suite mates at the time, or like even forward?
I don't think so. I never really noticed anything that could be traced back to that.
Okay. When you first heard about 9/11, what was your initial reaction? Did you think it was an accident? Did you think it was on purpose? Can you explain that a little bit?
I'm trying to remember. This this conversation is really making me feel like I didn't realize it was this long ago until I think about how hard it is to recall, some of the specifics. But I think when I first saw the video of the plane hitting it, I think I did think it was an accident because it just wouldn't occur to you at that, age of 18. Like, yeah, somebody did this intentionally. Obviously, it wasn't that long before you found out that was the case, but I think there was a lot of confusion about it at first, especially when it was just the one tower, where it certainly could be seen as an accident. Um, you know, Plane got off course, technology malfunctioned, what have you. Obviously, when the second one happened, clearly, that's not a coincidence here. That's obviously very intentional.
Yeah. So did you see the second plane happen? I know you saw the first images of the first plane, but you didn't see the second plane happen live.
I don't think so.
Okay. And so when the second plane hit, and you heard about it, did you think we were under attack, or did you think more of like this was a planned incident?
I definitely thought it was planned. And, certainly being in New Jersey, we're not that far away. So, there was definitely thoughts of how is this going to impact the surrounding area? Is there more? What's next? There's no way to ever, even now, with it already having happened, you could never prepare for that.
So what was the college campus like in the weeks preceding?
The weeks before it or the weeks after it?
Oh, a week after, I apologize.
I think we went back to class the next day. I don't think there were any classes at all the day of. The first class obviously was canceled, but I don't remember going to any other classes that day. I believe we did resume shortly after that, though. I think we went back the next day. But somber, I would say.
Yeah. How did 9/11 affect your worldviews at the time and now?
Well, at the time, I think, 18 years old, you're just going out on your own for the first time. I was already like kind of scared and shy to be away at college. I think it was, kind of made me realize like I might have lived a more sheltered life than I realized, had no idea that something like this was even like in the works, that there were events that would lead up to this. Obviously, we found out on the news later that there had been other like, sort of, I hate to say clues, but, other events that had been signals that there were terror groups looking to launch attacks on our soil. And I really didn't know much about that. Maybe nothing. Like it just wasn't something that I had a lot of awareness of. But afterwards, I certainly felt really strongly that like that we needed to address, the people who did it. I absolutely was on board with, find them, get them. I know a lot of people, that became a very divisive event because a lot of people felt, we don't want to send any kind of message like that might get into, further back and forth. We certainly don't want to get into a war. So that was also a very difficult time. Um, Forming such strong opinions at a young age about something that it was just so big to even wrap your head around.
Did you have any friends or family affected directly by 9/11?
I didn't, thankfully. Years later, when I entered the workforce, I became friends with someone who told me that she and her husband were both working in Manhattan at the time. And that shortly after that, they both left their jobs to find jobs closer to home just because they weren't directly affected in terms of they weren't hurt, they weren't in the towers, none of their family was, but just being there in general on that day was so profound for them that they couldn't stand to work in New York anymore. They had to find something, down here in Ocean Monmouth County. They just couldn't go back.
Have you visited New York after that, like recently during the event? And did you feel safe?
I have visited since then. I haven't visited since COVID, so it's been a bit. But I've been to New York a lot since then, actually, to be quite honest. Shortly after I graduated, one of my best friends moved to New York, and my brother and sister-in-law moved to New York. So I've spent a lot of time there over the years. Sadly, I've not gone to visit the Freedom Tower since it's been up, which is on my bucket list. But yeah, I've spent quite a bit of time in New York since 2001.
After maybe like years later, I know you said before you didn't recall the images. Have you gone back and seen the images? And if you have, can you tell me how they might have made you feel?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime that I'm around on the anniversary of 9/11, my husband and I always try to watch the the memorials that they'll show on TV. So this year in particular, what with it being such a milestone anniversary, we watched quite a bit of it, but it's never any less heartbreaking. It's never any, in fact, sometimes it's almost more heartbreaking because you know what's going to happen when you watch it.
What did that make you feel? How does that make you feel today?
I mean, I think that it makes you kind of reflect, being someone my age who lived, about just about half of their life before that happening. There's just so many things that are different in the day to day that a younger generation wouldn't have realized. So like if you were to watch an old episode of like a TV show or an old sitcom or an old movie, you would see things like people would just walk into an airport, get a ticket and get on a plane from the ticket desk. Or if you were getting off the plane and your parent was going to come get you, they could walk right up to the gate and pick you up. And now any air travel, for example, is so lengthy, hours on security lines, take your shoes off, empty your bag. You can't bring this on, you can't bring that on. You're looking at the people on the line around you, that person might be acting a little suspicious. I hope they're not getting on my flight. I still feel that way. I like to fly actually a lot. Even after 9/11, I've never been scared to get on a plane, but sometimes you do notice things that just make you think, make you get a little nervous.
Yeah. Was the first time you got on a plane since 9/11 nerve-wracking?
When was the first time I flew after 9/11? I think it was in 2003, maybe. But I don't really remember having any aversion to it. I've always kind of been a good flyer in general, but I've also been fortunate in that every flight I've taken, knock on wood, has been pretty non-eventful. But I will tell you the one that did freak me out. This was many years later. My husband and I were flying back from Aruba. So we had we were still in Aruba. So we had to go through all the customs line to get back into America. And it was my first time internationally flying in several years. And one of the things that was interesting on the customs line was that there was a guy behind us on the line. He was by himself, and he had absolutely no luggage whatsoever, not even a small backpack. He was nothing. And so you go through the customs line before you check your bags. So it's not like he already checked it. So he was standing really close to me. And like, this is before COVID, where it wasn't just like, hey, you're too close because you might get me sick. Like, you wouldn't normally notice at that time if somebody was standing a little close. So the fact that he was that close and I noticed, something was not right. And I just kept thinking, like, something's just not sitting well. Like, what kind of a person would get on an international flight and not bring a single item with them? And, keep creeping up, almost like they wanted to, see what we were talking about, and he ended up not being on our flight. But I was so paranoid about this guy because if someone has no luggage, are they not planning on getting to a destination? Perhaps like those people who were the hijackers. So that, even though it was many years after 9/11, that really stands out to me as, a travel experience that was directly impacted by what did happen on 9/11.
When you were thinking about this man being like suspicious with his behavior, was your instant like idea was, oh, this is similar to like a 9/11 experience? Maybe these are what these people were thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And so since then, you had no other problems on flights, no other fears?
Thankfully, no.
Okay.
Let's hope it stays that way.
So can you talk a little bit more about the experience you had on college and your campus after the initial attack? And like, I'm sure like even though you had classes the next day, everybody was still talking about it. I'm sure like you probably didn't learn anything.
The truth of the matter is that there's not anything specific that stands out. Like, there's not a specific conversation or a specific lesson, where it was discussed. And that's not to say that I felt in any way that it wasn't acknowledged, because I'm sure that's not true. There's just not a specific event that happened after it that stands out in memory.
Okay. Um, did that affect your work environment or school environment at all?
Not really.
No.
Not in the sense of, I didn't feel comfortable being there or, anything like that. But I think it was just a combination of overwhelming factors. I was overwhelmed to begin with, being there, away for the first time, and you're trying to go to class, and there's the biggest terror event of a generation happens. But
So did you notice any discrimination that happened after 9/11 and even since then? Like maybe initially, did you notice like people might have been more hesitant toward Muslim students?
I think so. And not just students, I would say, in any situation, a store, um, anywhere you might go, I think there definitely was and still is, a sense of like, just looking twice, am I sure this person's, safe to be around? Am I sure that they're not, part of that group, perhaps,
Do you feel race relations like today are directly affected by 9/11? Or do you think maybe now it's kind of went away?
I think it depends on who you ask. I think there definitely are people that still think about it. I still think about it, absolutely. Um, but I think that people who maybe are a little bit younger, I think the next generation below me is, you don't, they wouldn't maybe make those same parallels. They didn't experience it in the same way. So they might not have that sense of like being a little wary, being a little skeptical, oh, I see this person who is dressed this way, they, are probably part of that nationality, many people would be offended to learn that you might think, hey, I'm genuinely curious or concerned that this person might, have bad intentions. I definitely think that that does still exist. I think it will for a long time.
How do you feel the Bush administration handled 9/11?
I personally thought that he handled it well. I granted I was, young at the time, but I personally didn't have any qualms with it at all.
Were you able to vote for Bush in that election or no?
I voted for him. I definitely voted for him, but I think I was only old enough to vote the second time. But yes, I did vote for Bush.
And you felt George Bush or George W. Bush would be able to handle it better than his opposing candidate?
I did, yeah. And I thought, even in the immediate sense when it happened, stepping up and, like he was always kind of knocked as not being a great speaker. And he had to get up there immediately and speak on one of the worst things the country had ever seen. And I personally felt that he did a great job. And I think that for that time period, that he really did, help unify us and, try to give people what sense of comfort he could. So yeah, I personally was happy with it.
When we think of 9/11, we often think of the towers. How long did it take you to hear about the Pentagon being attacked too?
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. All of the non Twin Towers sites that were affected were very secondary. So you're right. I didn't really know immediately that there even were other areas that were impacted. Everything you saw on the TV, the radio, etc. It really was all very focused on New York City.
Living in the tri-state area, did you feel like you were personally attacked too?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been any one of us.
Do you recall the cleanup process?
I'm sorry?
Do you recall the cleanup process in New York?
A little bit.
Okay.
I know it took a long time.
Do you know anybody who may have volunteered there, maybe help clean up, or any firefighters or police, or like after the scene went over to help?
I don't think so. But at that time, most of the people I associated with were, we were about 18 years old. So not too many people I knew would have really been in a position to do that unless it was like, parents or something. But no one I knew that was involved directly in the cleanup effort.
Did your university reach out to you personally, or even as a community, asking if like people need help talking about it, or counselors, or anything like that?
That is a really good question. Not that I recall.
Do you think it would have benefited the community?
I don't think, I mean, it would never hurt. It can never hurt. And they may have, and I'm not recalling it. So, I certainly am not in any way saying that Monmouth didn't, try to take care of their students. Nothing stands out at the moment, but they were, like anyone else, probably totally unprepared for how to deal with something like this. But yeah, I would say, anytime you can offer people a support system, that's a great thing.
How long did it take for you to return back to normal or feel normal after 9/11?
I mean, that's a really good question. I've never thought about that. Maybe sometimes all of us didn't fully return back to normal because it's still when you go back and you read stories about it or watch the footage of it again, even years later, it never gets easier. It's never any less disturbing.
Do you feel like the world has returned back to normal?
I think to an extent, um, I think there was a sort of a period after it happened where um there was almost like like I've heard people refer to it as like the 9/12 period, like the day after, where there was such a feeling of like people just were proud to be Americans. People just wanted to be there for each other, care for each other. People wanted to be unified. And I think that that was maybe one of the few good things to come out of it. But, then that eventually faded. And obviously, now 20 years later, I've never seen a time where the country was as divided as it is now. So, you do kind of think back to that sense of community and pride in your country that was immediately afterwards. And though you'd never wish for a terrorist attack to happen, it was nice to see the country respond, in such a loving way. So then, yeah, like the back to normal that we got back to was in some ways not as good.
Were you personally more patriotic since 9/11?
I like to think so.
You know anybody who became sick from the events?
Thankfully, no. And I'm like, you may see them too. There's still commercials on all the time about people who are just now and in recent years, um, getting illnesses that are traced back to that. Thank God nobody I know has been affected by that, but I know it can cause a lot of very lasting health effects for the people who inhaled the smoke. Um and that smoke was, you weren't just in New York if you were breathing that in. That was for miles away.
Do you feel those people deserve like recompensation from the state?
Oh yes. I mean, I know it's not the state's fault or, you know, even the country's fault, but anyone who experienced any repercussions from 9/11 deserves something. I mean, if these people made it through, whether it's physical, psychological, emotional, absolutely, they're all entitled, in my opinion.
Does it make you angry when there are politicians that are fighting that?
Yeah, I don't think that it would be appropriate to try to take that away.
How do you feel the different generations handle 9/11?
I think that when people actually experienced it in the age that they remember it, you remember that feeling of anger that that happened shortly after, the shock, the sadness, the disbelief. And then the generations who either weren't alive for it or just were too young to, know what was going on. They're maybe learning about it in a textbook or hearing about it from a family member. You can't expect them to have the same level of strong feelings. They weren't there. Just like the stuff that my parents lived through, you can hear about it and you can react to it, but you weren't there.
Do you think maybe the older generations might have handled it better because they've been through maybe more wars and more conflicts?
No, that's very true. I've heard people actually say that about COVID as well. Like, they've lived through X, Y, and Z. So there definitely could be truth to that. I think it's a really good point.
How do you think people who was born after 9/11 grew up in this world? How do you think it was different from your perspective?
I think they probably grew up in a much more sheltered world. Friends of mine who have kids, there's just no doubt that it's so different from when I was growing up as a kid, in the 80s and the early 90s, where, you know, you could be babysitting someone 6-month old when you're 11 years old. But now people want to have a babysitter for their high school age kids. Kids now, parents are much more, I think, reluctant to let them do certain things. There was a lot more freedom, and even more so in the generations before me. And I think a lot of that is because there was less fear.
Yeah. America spends around like trillions of dollars in nationwide defense in the military and things of that nature. Did when you heard about 9/11 and maybe your feelings after, does that maybe affect the way you think that money should go? Should we add more money? Should we add less money?
I don't know if I would say more or less per se, but I think when you look at other areas where we spend our money that maybe I personally might not agree with, I would say, putting it towards our defenses is the better way to go.
Do you recall the skyline being different after 9/11?
Yeah,
How did it make you
absolutely.
feel about it? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was thinking a lot of shows that I watched at the time, there's so many shows that are set in and around New York City, and a lot of them in their opening credits or in like the little scenes between scenes would show various pictures of New York, like Friends, like The Sopranos, and the episodes after that, they would of course not show anymore the skyline with the Twin Towers, and that still gets me.
How was media after 9/11? Was it, can you describe the environment about it?
And it's very political. It's very political. Even for, even for someone my age who, was trying to watch more of the lighthearted stuff, there was it was very heavy.
Did you notice a political shift in America after 9/11?
I think so. I think you felt you had more people immediately after who, wanted to pay more attention and, be more involved and, show more pride in their country. And then as time went on, I think you had more people who were more that's when I started to notice the parties being so much more divided was, a couple years after that, forming much stronger opinions. That could also be because I was getting older too, but it seemed to me that after that, people definitely became much more to the left and much more to the right.
For the younger generations that were not born during 9/11, born after, what do you think they should learn about 9/11? What is the takeaway from it?
I mean, I would say the takeaway, well, there's so much. There's big picture and there's small picture. Like, from a smaller perspective, be safe, watch your surroundings, be careful. You know, you can't do what we did in years past where, you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants. You have to be a little bit more mindful of what's going on around you. And you have to realize that, if you are feeling a little suspicious or a little paranoid, that might just be your gut. That might just be your instinct. It's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you're not handling it poorly. But then, of course, there's the big picture stuff. Like, you have to remember, you know, you gotta really take care of the people close to you, because God forbid, you just don't know when you walk out your door in the morning. It could be a day just like any other. And so many of the stories that I've heard, from survivors and things like that, it was just a normal Tuesday. It was sunny, it was still warm. They were just getting up and going about their business. So I think, it sounds cliche, but life is short. You've got to take care of the people you love. Don't go to bed mad.
Is there anything you miss about a pre 9/11 world?
I think, I kind of miss how easy things were back then because we weren't scared. You could just go wherever, do whatever. It was never a big deal. Almost like a pre-COVID world now, where it's so different. But again, we're in that situation where the way we do everything has changed, and maybe it'll stay changed. So yeah, I would say when you think back to before something like a major terrorist attack, where you could go to other countries, interact with people from around the world, and you wouldn't feel nervous about it. You wouldn't think twice. Even going into the city now, and I still like going into the city for, shows and things like that. But, I know my husband, for example, will go into New York and he just never really feels totally at ease. I think a lot of people feel that way.
So when you think of 9/11 personally, what emotion comes to your mind?
I mean, sadness has got to be the first one, but, also fear. It happened once. Could it happen again? Sure,
Do you think the world is a
absolutely.
safer? Oh, sorry. Do you think the world is a safer place after 9/11 with all this new added security?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not for lack of trying. But you're just talking about people that are, first of all, they're fearless. When you look at the group who did this, they're smart. They're they know what they're doing. They can manage to be a step or two ahead. There's always going to be people like that out there. Um, I think that if there's a group out there planning something else on a large scale, I think they'll find a way to make it happen if they're determined to.
Do you think there's any precautions we could take to prevent that?
It would really have to be on like, an FBI kind of level, like stuff that's so far beyond, what my brain could comprehend. But, I'd certainly hope that FBI, CIA, all those groups are doing everything they can. I would say one thing that they absolutely should be doing is being much more careful about letting people into the country, and certainly letting people into the country without being citizens first. I'm very opposed to that. And that's part of the reason why. I don't think as a country that we are nearly cautious enough with our borders. Um, so I would say that's something that could absolutely be improved upon.
How do you think this administration would handle 9/11 if it happened today?
I mean, I don't know that they would be as quick to action. I think that there would still be a somber message of we need to come together. And I think that message would be sincere, but I don't think that it would be any kind of, jump to action. I think it might be a little bit slow to respond.
Did you notice any rise in violence since like the days after 9/11?
To be honest, I haven't really noticed as much of a rise in violence until recently. Um, that could be, just being young at the time. It could be the area where I live. But I think now is a much more violent time than it was then.
How does that make you feel?
I think it's kind of discouraging. You want to think that things are moving forward, but sometimes it seems like maybe not so much.
If you were put in charge of the 9/11 cleanup and the aftermath of 9/11, how would you done the cleanup any differently? Would you have done anything differently?
Oh God, that's a loaded question. To be fair, I know so little about what would go into something like that, that I can't really say that what they did. I mean, there was no preparation for it. You just had to get people in there and get it done. I think everyone did the best they could from, a country level all the way on down. Um, I know people really did, come from all over to try and help each other. I think that was wonderful, but I can't really say that I could have done a better job. I'm sure I couldn't.
How do you feel about the war on terror?
I think it's still very much a reality. It's not talked about as much, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that we, the general public, really need to hear everything. I think, it's fine. Keep it keep it on lockdown. I'd frankly rather not know much of it, because if I'm knowing it and seeing it on TV, then everybody's seeing it on TV. The wrong people could be seeing it on TV. So I think it's fine for them to keep stuff classified, but I think it's still very much a reality.
What could the government do to make you feel safer?
I think they have to protect the borders a lot more. Kind of going back to that. I don't think they do a very good job of that really at all. Kind of just a free for all.
You mean land borders, air borders, both?
All of it. All of it. People can just come in and, we really don't track them. We have a vast amount of undocumented people in the country, any of whom could be, of a contingent to plan something or have negative intentions, and we wouldn't know. There's no way to track it. So I think that that's not particularly safe and secure. There's a reason that entering other countries is more difficult.
Who do you think is responsible for 9/11?
Well, I mean, I have to assume that whatever motivated bin Laden and his followers to do this, I know it was there, there's obviously a religious clash there, but I have to assume that it goes back many, many, many years, many generations. I don't know if there really was a specific thing that triggered it. I know they planned it for a long time. Obviously, they planned it quite well. Who's to blame for it? I personally would have to say that he and his group were to blame, from what I know.
When you heard about Osama bin Laden's death, what was your emotions for that?
I thought it was good. I was glad. I mean, I know, of course, that there probably was someone waiting in the wings to fill that spot. But I thought that, for his role in it, yeah, he deserves to be gone.
Mhm. Are you proud to be an American?
Absolutely.
What do you think the world should know about 9/11?
Hi, sorry, my husband just walked in.
No problem.
Hi. Need me? Okay. I'm just gonna finish up here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
No problem. What do you think the rest of the world should know about 9/11?
I think they should know that, we need peace. I think in every country, in every race, in every religion, it's not worth it. It used to be a joke when I was little, like you'd watch these beauty pageants and like they would say like, what would your one wish be? And people would say world peace, and it would kind of be like laughed at, but it's actually a really serious thing. It actually is exactly what we should all be trying to achieve.
Do you think we can achieve it?
I hope so. I don't know. Maybe not, in my lifetime.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about 9/11 that we haven't talked about?
I don't think so. I think it's great what you're doing. I would, love to, when you guys are done, to contact Professor Ziobro and see if I can, see what she puts together with everything. But nothing in particular to add. I would just say for people who weren't alive during that time, it's good. It's good that they weren't there for that, but just learn as much as you can about it, because if we don't learn about it, then history will repeat itself. Excuse me, just 1 second. No, I did not. Sorry.
No problem. And so my last question is, do you have like a core memory associated with 9/11 that you'll never forget?
Definitely walking up to class that first day and seeing that sign on the door, class is canceled because of World Trade Center, and having absolutely no idea what a big deal that note really was.
Yeah.
It was a really big deal.
All right. I think that we did it. I think we're done.